Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 2020 Open House for the Urban Studies program. This is a really unusual year, given that we're all meeting virtually. And so what I'm doing is recording this particular session. It'll be available at a later date on the urbanstudies.pitt.edu website. And so feel free to review that material there after the fact. In addition to that, I'd like to point out that you can ask questions at any point during the chat. I'll get to those at the end of the prepared remarks that I've got. But as always, you can ask those questions right here synchronously or email me later on. My name is Dr. Michael Glass, and I'm the director of the Urban Studies program. And my email address is glass@pitt.edu. And those details are also provided at the end of this slide deck. Now, the reason I'm hosting this open house in this particular format this year is not only is it a really tricky time to get together because everybody is in Pittsburgh taking classes virtually, or maybe you're outside of Pittsburgh just waiting to get to campus, but also there's a lot of important things that are happening with the program this year. And for those of you that are established majors, you will see a few changes around the program. But for those of you that are considering urban studies as a degree and career option, I want to give you some information about the things that are just going to be rolling out with the urban studies program in the next year or so. So the material I'd like to cover today includes the things that are presently on this slide. I want to give you just a brief background to what the Urban Studies program is all about, both from a historic perspective and where we're going from here. I want to let you know about some of the updates that are coming to the Urban Studies program over the next year, and then finish off some things with a special focus on the new structure of the BA in Urban Studies. Because for those of you that are declaring as a major at some point over the next year, and for everybody that's choosing to become an urban studies student after fall of 2021, so in 1 year's time, there's going to be a radically different set of requirements for the degree. So I want you all to get the heads up on that. Okay, so here we go. It may not come as any surprise to some of you about why we have an urban studies at the University of Pittsburgh. Essentially, Pittsburgh's always been a great home for urban collaboration and research, just based on the rich history of urban growth, industrialization, urban renewal, deindustrialization, and rebirth that the city and the city region have to offer. But the Urban Studies program comes out of a particular point in time when there was some really significant social unrest and urban problems that needed to be confronted. This aerial picture that's currently being shown here is of the Hill District, looking towards downtown in the distance. This picture is taken in the late 1950s. Mid-1950s, when the Civic Arena, the first space where the Pittsburgh Penguins played, had already been constructed, but the neighborhood around it, the Lower Hill District, had only started to be destroyed in the name of urban renewal. Now, as a consequence of that displacement of the historic African American community within this area, and as a consequence of the social unrest that came out of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and associated rioting that occurred during the late 1960s, and because of how that touched the Pitt campus, right? At Old Pitt Stadium, that was where a staging ground for the National Guard was, as people were trying to restore order to the city after that unrest. The University of Pittsburgh, as with a lot of different universities across the United States, decided that it was time to construct programs, interdisciplinary programs, that could tackle some of the underlying systemic social problems that had come to the surface in the mid to late 1960s. And so that's the reason that the Urban Studies program first came into existence. It's as a response to social unrest. It's as a response to the changing and complex urban issues that were facing urban America at that particular point in time. Now, over the last 50 years, the program has gone through periods of stagnation and also growth. And now the Urban Studies program is a really healthy place to be located, if it's just for a single course or for an entire bachelor's degree in urban studies, which you can do either as a single major or as a double major, joining some of your interests in different fields across the Dietrich School to ones that focus on the urban experience and those processes of urbanization and urbanism that drive a lot of the contemporary city. At the moment, depending on whether a bunch of people have just graduated or whether it's in the middle of the academic year, we have right about now got anywhere between 85 and 100 majors. So it's not the largest program within the Dietrich School by any means, but it's certainly not the smallest. We have a lot of strength and interest amongst the student body, people that are interested in some of our classic concentrations, things like urban planning, urban politics and policy, community organization, or international urbanism. These have attracted a diverse group of students that I like to think are unified by one thing, and that is it's been my experience over the last 10 years being with the program that you all want to change the world. Change your cities, change your neighborhoods, change your streets in order to make them more sustainable, equitable, economically viable spaces than has been the case in the past. Now, from the Urban Studies program, as people graduate and go out, there are a number of different places that our graduates end up. It could be in the public sector, working as planners or chiefs of staff to council members, or working elsewhere within the broader realm of public service. Things like the urban redevelopment authorities, housing authorities, federal government, state government. We can find urban studies graduates from Pitt working in all of those areas. We also see students going from the University of Pittsburgh with an urban studies degree to find homes in the nonprofit sector, working at community development corporations, food banks, working in different educational opportunities, and elsewhere where they're making a difference and finding their passion on a daily basis. And obviously, the private sector beckons for a lot of people. We have executives at Uber, we have entrepreneurs, we have people that are in private practice in the medical fields. We have different people that are in the startup space. We have people that have gone both domestically and globally into real estate and urban development careers. So there's a lot of different pathways that urban studies students have followed. And when we have a look at the breakdown of where our current majors sit, we can kind of see how that's the case. Urban planning, community organization, both our strongest concentrations at this point in time, but there is a real opportunity to blend courses across those concentrations. At least that's what's occurred in the past. I'll get more into what is going to change in a later piece of this presentation. So again, this presentation and this open house is all about thinking about where we've come from and where we're going. The Urban Studies program has core faculty strength in a number of different areas, whether it is urban sustainability, whether it is geographic information science, whether it's urban planning and policy, or whether it's community engagement. We find faculty with core research and teaching strengths in any one of these specialty fields that can assist students get to where they want to go with courses and independent research opportunities that help foster your experience with those particular things. I'll point out that GIS is one of our key strengths at the moment, and that's because the capacity to take data, information, and to visualize it and analyze it is something that is a sought after skill and sought after attribute in a lot of careers, whether you're talking about the for-profit, nonprofit, or public sectors of the economy. We have 4 core faculty, myself included, that constitute the Urban Studies program at this point. If you have a look at the faculty names against the regular courses that we all teach, you'll see how these different strengths are mapped onto particular courses. We can do courses here in Remaking Cities, which is thinking about the interaction between policy and practice, planning and community development. We can do a lot of hands-on courses around issues to do with GIS work. that lends itself to creating lives of impact in a lot of different venues. So there's a range of things that you can do. Our most recent faculty hire, Roberta Mendonca Di Cavallo, who's got GIS expertise, is also here to foster new courses in urban sustainability, thinking about practices of GIS, certainly, but also principles of biophilia and sustainability and planning, so that we can all help to create better looking cities. Okay, so that's where we are and what's coming up for the Urban Studies program. There's a couple of key things that I want to point out. Generally speaking, you don't need to be a major to take advantage of these, but there are a few things, such as the upcoming Honor Society, Upsilon Sigma, that you will want to declare as an Urban Studies major in order to make yourself eligible for those opportunities. Now, the first thing that I want to note is that historically, there have been a lot of courses in urban studies that have not counted towards any Gen Ed requirements, either for the Dietrich School or for other things like the Sustainability Certificate. Now, that has all changed. If you have a look at this list of courses, you'll see what sort of opportunities exist within the Urban Studies program to allow you to take courses that will, in the future, count towards Gen Ed requirements for your bachelor's degree in the Dietrich School. So there are a few courses that have more than one attribute. For instance, US Housing and Property, starting in spring of 2021, will count for not only the diversity Gen Ed, but it also counts for the social science Gen Ed. Similarly, the current COVID-19 and the city class will count towards the global issues Gen Ed, as well as the historical analysis Gen Ed. Talk with me in my function as advisor for more details about this, but moving ahead, you can find a lot of the different Gen Eds are covered by at least one of the courses that is available through the regularly offered Urban Studies catalog. Coming up, starting next semester, we have a couple of new courses that you might want to take under consideration. One of them is Experimental Urban Exploration, or UrbX. That's Urban Studies 1005. It's a special topics course taught by Salvatore Poirier, and he's going to be helping us to explore Pittsburgh through its past structures and through the abandoned architectures that we can find around the city. This is all about a hands-on approach to exploring the city that we're in, to understanding why particular things are in the places that they're in, and taking more of a social archaeological approach to reading the built environment, both through hands-on exercises and readings, as well as things that are more conceptually based. Another course that I'm excited about next semester is Data Visualization, taught by our GIS specialist, Dr. Susan Lucas. In this particular course, you're going to be using open source software in order to create visualizations of different forms of data. This might be maps, but it might also be tables and other graphics that you can use in the reports, in the products that you create, either at Pitt or certainly beyond in your professional careers to follow. It's not just about making pretty maps, it's about understanding the theory behind those maps. No GIS experience is required for this course, and in fact, I think all of our students could benefit from being able to think about how to take data and then visualize or represent it in a way that makes sense for them. So keep an eye out for those two courses. They're currently on the books, and so when enrollment for spring classes begins, do be sure to check those things out. Another event that we're starting to institute with the Urban Studies program is more alumni outreach. We have an amazing set of graduates that have gone on to amazing things. Anybody from borough managers in Pittsburgh boroughs to associate directors of nonprofits to executives within companies that they've either founded or they are now heavily invested in. We'll get to hear from some of those viewpoints in informal brown bags that are going to take place on Wednesdays at 1 p.m., occasionally during the fall, and then again in the spring. The three dates to note here, October 7th, we will be having a small panel with people that have gone on from Pitt to nonprofit careers. A couple of weeks after that, on October 28th, we'll be hearing from people that have gone into the public sector. And then the last one for this semester, on November 18th, we'll be talking to people who are now in the private sector, having previously done careers at Pitt. So those will be available via Zoom, as a lot of events will be this particular semester, but keep an eye out for those as well. Now, a brand new initiative, and this is going to kick off in spring of 2021, is an honor society. The University of Pittsburgh Urban Studies program is proud to be the sponsor of a local chapter for an honor society specifically for urban studies majors that is underwritten by the Urban Affairs Association, which is a national scholarly association focused on issues of urban planning, urban studies, urban administration, you guessed it, anything to do with urban research and education. It will be free to join this honor society based on a generous grant by a former alumni. The membership dues are going to be waived for any student who qualifies to become part of this initiative. Once you get in place, the board is going to be able to guide future events for students. But the benefit of this for you, if you qualify for this honor society, is to be able to, number one, identify yourself as an honor society member. Number two, receive an official certificate of membership. But probably most importantly, gaining access to national and indeed international networks of other honor society members, and also discounts to participate in the scholarly conference that is hosted by the Urban Affairs Association each year. So I'll be reaching out to people that I see as qualifying for that in the spring of 2021. It will be a student-led organization in that there will be membership opportunities and leadership opportunities for people to become chair, co-chair, and so forth within that society. So be on the lookout for more information about that by the start of the spring 2021 semester, and then we'll be recruiting cohorts of eligible students every semester from that point. Okay, last but not least today, I want to focus a little bit about the changes that are coming up to the Urban Studies program. As I've already mentioned today, the Urban Studies curriculum, which has been in place, by the way, since 1978, has been in drastic need of a refresh for quite some time. And now we're happy to be able to announce that this has been approved, and starting in 2021, you'll be able to take advantage of the new requirements for the Urban Studies major. So one of the problems that has occurred, and I'm sure for existing majors who've looked at their transcripts, you already recognize this, that there's an awful lot of red, unfulfilled ink that shows up as a warning on your student transcript record. Because at the moment, it's very arbitrary about what counts for what, and it's very illegible. It's hard to keep track of as a student what you've accomplished and what you haven't, unless you're paying attention in the advising meetings that you have with me. In addition, the traditional concentrations of urban planning, urban policy, community organization, and international urbanism are, at the end of the day, number one, rather arbitrary. You can take courses across concentrations, and so they didn't really make much difference for students moving through the program. And number two, those concentrations didn't actually appear on your official transcript once you graduated. What we want to do is create a new structure for you that allows you to understand the sequence in which you need to go through the Urban Studies degree in order to gain the skills and concepts that build upon one another. By doing this, it's going to allow us to assume particular levels of knowledge in particular courses, so that rather than doing reviews of course concepts that you may have had in other Urban Studies courses, we can move in the more advanced courses to providing vocationally oriented, hands-on skill training that's going to enable you to compete in whatever job you're going for post-graduation. This is also going to provide you with the opportunity to more easily and seamlessly create an interdisciplinary and perhaps dual or double major program of study with other departments and programs within the Dietrich School, or certainly across the University of Pittsburgh. So these changes are coming. For those of you that are already urban studies majors and are just knocking on the door of graduation, you don't need to worry about this too much. But for those of you that are thinking about enrolling as urban studies majors, these requirements will be available for you come 2021. So what is not changing is the size of the program in terms of the credit load that we're expecting of you. At the moment, and moving on in the future, the Urban Studies major, the BA in Urban Studies, will be a 36 credit major. This is a good size major because it allows you to easily double major with a different department, or just focus on urban studies and take the other electives that make sense for you. But what is changing is a clearer scaffolding of core, intermediate, and advanced level electives so that you can, with greater precision, think about what courses you need to do at what stage of your Pitt career. We are focused here on interdisciplinarity. We want you to be going outside of the Urban Studies program for some of your experiences, but we also want to make sure that you are gaining in a scaffolded way and in a consistent way the skills and the concepts that matter for a solid grounding in urban research and urban studies. Another thing that's new in the requirements that I'm going to show you is that you will receive direct credit for things like study abroad and like community engagement. However, one of the things that is going away for good is the requirement that you have to do internships as part of the Urban Studies major. This is recognizing that there's a lot of different ways for you to be community engaged. And because most students within the Urban Studies major want to change the world in some way, we want to trust that you're going to do that in the way that makes most sense for you. So I'm going to walk you through this particular scaffolded set of expectations that's there in this graphic on the right-hand side of the page. Essentially what you're going to see is that moving forward from now, every Urban Studies major will be required to do a sequence of 4 courses at the start of their career, and then moving into intermediate scale electives, both within Urban Studies and outside of Urban Studies, and then advanced electives, again, both in Urban Studies and outside of Urban Studies, and a capstone experience that's going to bring everything back together for those students that reach the terminal stages of their degree. One thing that you will also note from this is that while some of the course names might be familiar to those of you already in the program, there are a drastically different set of course numbers that will be taking effect come fall of 2021 to provide more clarity about what is an introductory course, what is an intermediate course, and what is an advanced course in Urban Studies. So for the core of your Urban Studies degree, every student is going to be doing a sequence of 4 classes: Introduction to Urban Studies, Introduction to GIS, Introduction to Urban Research, and Urban Social Theory, which is a new course starting in fall of 2021. Taken together, these will provide the backbone for your Urban Studies experience, allowing you to get those basic concepts and skills out of the way very early in your career so that you can move on to the more applied areas of Urban Studies research. Again, these 4 courses are going to be done by everybody in the major, hopefully at a very early stage of your Pitt career. After that, you have a little bit of work to do in the intermediate set of electives. How we're grouping things is that we are splitting Urban Studies electives from things that are interdisciplinary in nature or are done as part of a study abroad experience, or are done in kind of an affiliated way to Urban Studies by itself. So in Group A, you've got to do at least 6 credits or 2 classes from the list of courses that are listed there. You will recognize a lot of these as courses that are already on the books although they do have different course numbers in order to reflect where they sit as far as their intermediate status within the major. The Group B courses, you need to do at least 3 credits out of this. You will get credit here for doing a study abroad course, one of the global city courses, for instance. You will get a credit here for doing an urban studies study abroad. You will also get credit under this category of electives for doing an internship. Again, internships are no longer compulsory. Under the new requirements, they will be voluntary. You still need to find this experience if it makes sense for you, but there's a lot more latitude given in terms of how you can create your experience. There is a new thing here called Urban Studies 220. Starting in spring of 2021, there is the opportunity to take a 1 to 3 credit course called Urban Undergraduate Teaching Experience, where you get to assist an urban studies faculty member with assisting in the classroom in some way, shape, or form. See me if you're interested. Essentially, the major issue there is that you must have received at least a B grade in a course that you hope to be a UTA or undergraduate teaching assistant for. Now, also in this Group B are the electives that are offered by different departments. And this is an example offering of those different classes, things like Approaches to the Built Environment, Working Class Literature, Paris, Urbanism Past and Present. A lot of different courses. Not all of the names are given there, but see me for the full list of courses through a lot of different departments, from Africana Studies to music, from sociology to anthropology. They are all there. In addition, you should be doing at least 9 credits or 3 courses from the advanced set of classes that are listed under Group C and D. You should be doing these classes after you've done some of those intermediate courses. Classes like Remaking Cities, US Housing and Property, International Urbanism, Urban Ethnography, all of these anticipate some level of understanding of those intermediate skills and concepts that you learn through the Group B and A electives. In addition, we've tried to isolate some of those more advanced electives found in different departments so that you can get some credit for doing things outside of the major as well. Now, finally, the capstone, it used to be called Urban Studies 1500, but is now called Urban Studies 900, starting in fall of 2021. This is still a 3-credit course. It is the capstone experience for the field. It should be the culmination of the major, so you wait until the very end of your degree to do it. And it now has a few extra prerequisites. We require you to have done the 4 core courses: Introduction to Urban Studies, Introduction to GIS, Urban Social Theory, and Introduction to Social Urban Research before you take it. You should be a 3rd or 4th year student, and at least 6 credits from those intermediate electives should have been taken before you do it. So this really should be that culminating experience for your major. Okay, so I've thrown a lot of information at you there, but what I want to do is just share with you those 3 points again. Number 1, existing majors, people that are close to graduation, can continue with their set of requirements as they move toward completion of the Urban Studies degree. If you feel like you're early enough that you might want to take one set of requirements over the other, talk to your advisor, that is me, and we can see which set is right for you. But you do have flexibility if you've only got a few credits under your belt to take on the new set of requirements and start working towards that, or to continue under the old set of requirements. The old requirements won't be grandfathered out for some years yet, but starting in 2021, anybody that declares after fall of 2021 will be falling under the new set of requirements. Okay, so finally, before we turn it over to questions and answers, I want to take this opportunity to remind you that there's currently a student experience survey that's available. That's pi.tt/URBNST20. that is asking you about where your program goes next. Working this year, we are starting to develop a new credential for a pre-professional degree in urban planning and geographic analysis. We want to hear about your thoughts about that and other ideas that we have moving further out for the Urban Studies program. Please complete that survey. It's for anybody that's doing at least one course in urban studies. So majors and non-majors, people that aren't declared can take this and let us know what you think about the Urban Studies program and how things are shaping up as far as you see it. All right, so now I see that there's a couple of questions in the chat. I'm going to turn my attention now to answering those. And thanks so much for your participation today. After I've gotten to these two questions in the chat, I will unmute the people that are here present in the room today. So if they've got any questions that they want to give verbally, they can do so. All right, so Eric is asking, can you take courses from both groups A, B, C, D, or do you have to pick one group to stay in? So good question. Think about these as individual buckets that you need to dip into each one of those things. So from Group A, that's our intermediate urban studies electives, you should do at least 2 courses. From that Group B, that's the intermediate other stuff, you should do at least 1 course. From Group C, you need to do at least 2 courses. And from Group D, you need to do at least 1 course. So the idea behind these requirements is to give greater clarity when you're having a look at your transcript to see how close you are to completing those requirements. And in addition, it provides you flexibility to continue to structure your degree the way that you want it. Hannah is asking whether I'll send the full list of courses that are available for use, or will it be posted online somewhere? The answer is both. I can send that list to you, and Hannah, I'll send it directly to you and everybody else that's in the room today. But once the requirements have received final approval, it will be posted on the Urban Studies website with a clear description so that you're aware of what the old requirements are and what the new requirements will be. What other questions do you have for me right now? And remember, you can always reach out to me at glass@pitt.edu if you've got any questions.
Hi, I was just wondering, so for the Urban Studies study abroad, are there only like a select few locations we can go to that fulfill those requirements, or can we really go anywhere for that?
Amelia, I just live for the day that we can go anywhere on study abroad again. But the answer is that that's not, so the Urban Studies 400, that is a code that's used by the Study Abroad Office for a lot of different programs. Essentially, you can go anywhere in the world and find an urban studies oriented course that you can do as part of a Pitt-In program or as a third-party provided study abroad program. Most of our students, though not all for various reasons, choose to go abroad, and we want to provide opportunities to have that credit recognized as part of the urban studies major. So for instance, in the Pitt in Sydney program, there's a Global City Sydney program course. There's a Sustainable Urbanism course that you can do there. There's a lot of different opportunities in Sydney, London, Paris, Rome, Florence, you name it. So yeah, you can do it anywhere, and we'll be able to count that credit earned within a study abroad program as fulfilling that requirement, that Group B requirement.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What other questions do you all have? Okay, are the concentrations such as urban planning, international urbanism, etc., still active, or do you just graduate now as an urban studies major, not, for example, an urban planning major? Hannah, I'm glad that you've asked that question. At the moment, once you graduate, the only thing that your degree says is BA in Urban Studies. It does not say BA in urban planning. It does not say BA in urban studies concentrating in international urbanism. None of that has ever appeared in a student's transcript, which from our perspective has made those concentrations all the more archaic. So what we want to do, instead of offering those concentrations that are pretty arbitrary and able to be flexed a lot by different students, is to create new degree credentials that actually put on your transcript things like urban planning, geographic analysis, international urbanism, and so forth. There is going to be a new co-major with the Urban Studies program that allows those people that are doing international urbanism to create a truly international urban degree. And so there'll be more details about that forthcoming next year. But I hear what you're saying, and absolutely, the concentrations will stay active for the existing majors underneath the now old requirements. But moving ahead, instead of doing a concentration in urban planning, you'll be able to do a degree in urban planning and get everything that comes along with that. Olivia is asking, so if you declare urban studies between now and 2021, you get to choose which requirements to follow? Absolutely. These, the existing requirements, if you like the concentrations, if you like the way that the current degree is structured, you can continue under the existing set of requirements that can be found on the Dietrich School's undergraduate programs page or through the urbanstudies.pitt.edu page. But if you feel like you would be well positioned to meet all of the new requirements, you've still got time remaining, then yeah, you can do that. It is your choice. Talk with me about it as we have our advising meetings, and we'll make a note one way or another which one you're intending to do. Okay, so the other thing from Hannah is one system better than the other? Which one would you recommend following? Well, I've been leading this effort to get the requirements changed, so I'd say that I'd have to recommend the new requirements. I think it's going to make a lot cleaner of a transcript and help you understand your progress towards completing the major. But we will continue to support the old set of requirements if that is what you prefer to do. Unless you're declaring after fall of 2021, you will have the option about which makes more sense for you. What other questions do you all have? These are great questions, by the way, and thanks for asking them.
Hi, one question I had, so for the old requirements, will there be like any like slight changes in like the courses to take, like sometimes like from year to year, like there might be like a course added in as a requirement or taken away as a requirement. So are there any like course changes to expect for the old requirements?
Good question, Mithri. The main thing that you should be watching for is that all of the course numbers will be changing. So in PeopleSoft, beginning in 2021, if you have a look for 1500, you're probably not going to find it. It's going to be 900, but it's going to be crosswalked over, so that course will be available for the old requirements. And I can't foresee any courses that are currently listed as electives under the old concentrations that are going to be discontinued before the old major requirements are totally phased out in a few years.
I have one real quick. Hi, Dr. Glass.
Hey, Erica.
How are you?
Good.
So if you choose to, like, I should say, is there any flexibility if you're an existing major? Like, can you choose to mostly follow the old requirements and take part in some of the new ones? Like, for example, since internships aren't required for the old one, but they are, or internships aren't required for the new one, but they are for the old one. Like, if you want to stay in the old one, do you have to still do that, or do you have to stay like by the book for each, if that makes sense?
You're such a rule follower. The internships are an interesting problem given the current COVID-19 pandemic. And so the announcement went out at the end of the summer that if you've had trouble finding an internship because they've been canceled or frozen because nobody's working together in a team, you can substitute out an elective instead of 3 credits worth of internship. And I'm going to hold to that for the foreseeable future until these new requirements take effect. So if you feel like you've got 1 internship in the bag, but you'd rather spend an extra 3 credits instead of doing an internship, doing a different elective, either within urban studies or with one of the associated courses, that's up to you. Just let me know what you're thinking and we can work with that. Does study abroad have to be through Pitt, or can it be through a third-party provider? It can be through a third-party provider. A lot of the programs that the Study Abroad Office gives urban studies numbers for are already through third-party providers. But as always, if there is a course that you have done through a third-party provider, all I ask is that you provide that description of the course and the justification why it should be considered to be an urban-related study abroad course in order to get credit under that Group B requirements. All right, I think we have time for a couple more questions. So if you've got any questions or queries, or you just want to let rip with how terrible these changes all sound, then let me have it right now. Also interested to hear from those of you in the room who is thinking that the event schedule that's coming up sounds useful. The Alumni Brown Bags, the Honor Society, and so on. Why, thank you, Catherine. All sounds very exciting and useful. Definitely planning to go. There we go. All right, well, thanks. I live for your affirmation, guys, and I appreciate the time that you spent with me today. This video, as soon as I'm able, will be posted to the front page of the new Urban Studies website. And so do point out to your friends, those that might be considering an Urban Studies degree or course, to check it out, to see what's coming up with the program. As always, stay engaged and stay active with letting me know what's working and what's not. I would point out, just as a final note, that I really do want a good response rate at the Urban Studies survey, pi.tt/URBNST20, in order to make sure that your opinion is heard as we start to do the work for those new credentials that'll be part of the Urban Studies program moving forward. The Dietrich School, from the dean on down, are really excited about the future for urban studies at Pitt. I'm so glad that you're choosing to spend some of your credits and your time with us in the program. Thanks so much for your time today, and I look forward to seeing you in a course, in an advising meeting, or just around the block at some point, socially distanced, of course. Thanks so much for your time.